Today, we are rating wildcard teams. Yes, welcome to FPL Mate. My name is Dan. A lot of people seem to be wildcarding in Game Week 4, so we're going to have a look at some really good wildcard teams. We're going to have a look at some that may need a little bit of improvement to hopefully help you guys find the perfect way to points in Game Week 4 and beyond. So this first team is coming in from Kaushik on Twitter. Thank you so much for sending me your wildcard to have a look at and see if we can rate it. Guys, of course, if you want your team rated, you can click the link at the top of the description to get your AI rating straight away. Really, really easy and simple to do. Of course, there's still 50% off membership as well if you want the premium version, but you're going to have to check out in the description. But guys, looking through this team, what we see is someone who really wants to get Haaland and Salah into their team. And that is going to be a theme for wildcards in Game Week 4. Everyone wants to have both of these players. And a lot of people are using their wildcard purely to get the Haaland and Salah double up in their team. But the issue is that can sometimes come at a cost, particularly if you want players like Saka in this team as well, Luis Diaz in this team. And I do think some of these picks are quite interesting, but there is a massive flaw with this FPL team, and it is the defense. So we've got Gabriel there, of course. Henderson is an interesting choice for a goalkeeper. I don't think there's too much wrong with that. I think that's maybe a personal choice for your favorite 4.5 million goalkeeper. But Fas, Hall, who is not even guaranteed minutes, and then on the bench we've got Johnson, again not guaranteed minutes, and Vandenberg, who I think is a really interesting pick, and I can see him getting game time. At this moment, he is a bit of a mystery for game time. So really, we are looking at a really a difficult situation in defense where outside of Gabriel, you've pretty much given up on scoring any points in defense because you do want to have Saka, Luis Diaz, and maybe Nicholas Jackson in there as well. There's no bench attacker with Winks on the bench, and therefore this team is only rated 88%. This team costs 100 at 0.1 million, which is why we see slightly over budget here, and that's going to be fine. A lot of people are going to have team value over 100 million, but straight away we got to fix this attack, and you have to make some compromises somewhere. That we need to improve the defense somehow, and I think maybe the players to sacrifice could maybe be a Luis Diaz or a Jackson, because certainly if you want Salah and Haaland, and if you want Saka as well in there, players like João Pedro and Smith Rowe, these are great players. These are the exact kind of low value enablers that are going to allow you to pick those more expensive players in your team. But if you're also going for Luis Diaz and Jackson, are they really going to score so many points that you basically score 1 or 2 points from your defenders each week? Probably not, is the answer there. So straight away, we got to drop one of Luis Diaz or Jackson, and I'm probably going to say doing Luis Diaz down to an Eberechi Eze I think could be a really good move here. So let's throw him in. We've freed up 0.6 million by making that trade, and that's going to allow us to maybe switch 1 or 2 of the defenders here. So we're going to actually switch out Fast for another 4.5 million defender. We're going to have a look at defenders that cost 4.5 million or less. The best 4 game week prediction players include Pau, Dinya, Konsa. Konsa seems reasonably safe. Let's throw him in there. And also, let's replace Hall, because not only are Newcastle not that great defensively, but Hall is that minutes risk as well. So if we replace him with Dunk, what we've got now is the bulk of your team. We've still got all of your favorite picks other than Luis Diaz is the one player who had to be sacrificed. You know, you could also maybe sacrifice Jackson if you wanted to go down that route. And we've been able to improve the defense a little bit and at least get some defenders who are capable of scoring points. It's still a little light. It's still very weak on the bench. And I think if you wanted to improve this team further, we'd have to make some more downgrades somewhere, particularly if you want to get a Liverpool player in. So this is not my favorite team. There are obviously sacrifices that had to be made, so we're going to leave it there. It's improved, but I've tried not to change what you want from your team too much. But certainly there's some big risks going on in this team right now with the lack of Liverpool defenders, I think. And by the way, guys, just making those 3 transfers has taken this team up to a 95% rated team. So it doesn't take too much to really get your team looking much nicer and much more statistically backed to succeed in FPL. Just a couple of minor changes does that. So I was also sent this team from Chelsea Leclerc, and I feel like this team is a little bit of a slightly better, different way of managing to get Salah, Haaland into your team and have that additional semi-premium midfielder with Cole Palmer in there as well. So yeah, this is pretty interesting. This is certainly a different way of doing it, and the way this is done is basically to go for a 4-4-2 formation, and going for more defenders often means that you can spend more money on your attack, and therefore we have super cheap midfielder on the bench, Winks, and Joe on the bench as well, 4.5 million forward, so really, really cheap on the bench there. We've got Keane as another super cheap bench option, so no money on the bench once again. Is that going to cause some issues? There is very much a possibility that that could happen. How do we fix this? Well, I'm not sure this needs a massive amount of fixing, because we have got Trent in there as well, which is really, really positive. I really do like that, but I do worry about this bench. Now, this team only costs 99.1 million, so I do wonder if there is another way of doing this. This team did come up with some pre-planned transfers, planning to bring in Saka, Mbeumo, and Wissa in game week 6, which would mean a -4. And I think, you know, this person sent this team and gave the transfer strategy, but I will say the same thing as I said pre-season. If you build a team and you plan too many transfers too far ahead, it will not work out, because yes, you can say, oh, I would really like to buy Saka in game week 5. I'd like Mbeumo in game week 6. I'd like Wissa in game week 7. You can plan ahead and ahead every transfer move you're going to make. But something is going to go wrong. Something is going to go big time wrong. There is going to be a new player that emerges that you didn't realize you wanted, but now you really do. You will get injuries. You will get suspensions. You will see players go off form. And any big, very, very specific plan that you make will go bad very quickly. So I think, yes, it's fine to have a rough idea of what kind of transfers you'd like to make, or maybe even to say, okay, this is just one transfer I plan on making within the next couple of game weeks. You should save yourself some free transfers for some emergencies that might fix the situation a little bit there, because looking at that plan, I don't know. And do you want to stick with a 4-4-2 formation with nothing on the bench? You probably don't know. This team also has 0 Arsenal players going into game week 4, and that might look okay for 4 and maybe 5 against City for Arsenal, but after that, Arsenal have the 2 best fixtures in the whole season back to back, and that's going to be Leicester and Southampton, both at home. So I think it would be nice to have 1 Arsenal player at least to make sure you're prepared and ready to go without having to spend those transfers. How are we going to do that? Well, you could just simply do Palmer to Saka, for example, if you wanted to. Luis Diaz, I think, is a non-essential player. I can see him getting rotated in the near future, as Liverpool just have so many wingers at the club right now. So maybe that's going to be another way to do that. But it's going to be a little bit difficult. And one way of doing that would be to maybe downgrade Trent. But again, you probably want Trent. It's difficult. Palmer, Salah, and Haaland cost a lot of money, and you are going to have to make sacrifices, and you're not going to be able to get everyone you want. But I would say 1 Arsenal player is probably the minimum of what I'd be looking for. Now, this next team comes from FPL City, and this guy cooked. In terms of finding a Salah, Palmer, and Haaland draft, with also Trent in there, with Robertson, the double Liverpool defense, I really like this. It's not got any Arsenal players, but we could maybe see a world in which you maybe swap out Salah for Saka in game week 6. Maybe that would work, and it would give you a little bit of money to maybe upgrade the bench. So that is just 1 transfer planned. It's not planning too many transfers ahead. We just think about that 1, and that kind of solves the long-term issue of the bench and also solves the issue of the no Arsenal players, because the rest of this team is really strong. One concern about Lewis and his long-term minutes if you don't have any cover on the bench, but actually Greaves is probably my favorite of the 4 million defenders to go for right now, so I actually don't mind this at all. So in general, I think this team is really strong. Yes, you have to use Semenyo, Rodgers, and João Pedro as enablers to try and get the other really top players in the team, but it works. Maybe you could just change Palmer to Saka right now. It would free up a little bit of budget. You could maybe upgrade 1 of your bench players, and maybe that improves things like that as well. But if you want Palmer in your team, you want Salah, and you want Haaland, I would say that this is the way to do it. I really like this team. It is 98% rated on Fantasy Football Hub, which is really, really strong. You're not going to see too many teams higher rated than 98%. like I said, this guy cooked, and as long as you have that transfer plan to have a rough idea of how you're going to get Saka, Havertz, an Arsenal defender maybe into your team, maybe Roberts goes for Gabriel, maybe Salah goes for Saka, and you kind of keep your mind open to those kind of things, I think this could work out really well. So yeah, I like this team a lot. Guys, before we have a look at the next team, make sure you have dropped a like if you are enjoying this video so far, and do subscribe if you're new around here. And if you've got any questions related to your team, your wildcard team, I would love to hear from you guys, and I'd love to answer some of you guys as well. So drop a comment down below. So this is another team from FPL Zidane, and similar kind of situation with trying to get Salah, Haaland, and Palmer into the team all at once. But this one is done slightly differently, and what it's done is it's downgraded the likes of a Robertson to make sure you've got a decent amount of 4.5 million-ish defenders. And this Dunk, Robinson, Digne, and even Greaves rotation actually works really well. You can see going through the game weeks, you will play slightly different defenders depending on the game week, depending on the oppositions of your defenders. So this rotation works well. I do like that. This team is rated 94%. So yeah, pretty decent. Again, we're using Semenyo, Rodgers, João Pedro as the kind of make weights. But interestingly, this team only costs 99.4 million. So maybe there is even some opportunity to upgrade some of these players later down the line. You know, a Semenyo or a Rodgers could maybe be upgraded in a couple of game weeks to someone else. Again, I do like the idea of moving a Salah down to a Saka in game week 6. I think that could work well and allow you to spread the funds thereafter. But one more note on this team, it's actually got Fabianski in this team, who has a good chance of playing in game week 4 against Fulham. And if you can get Fabianski to start against Fulham due to that Areola back injury that he has, then that allows you to have a player like Sells, the Nottingham Forest goalkeeper, and you can still bench him for that difficult Liverpool game and still take advantage of their fairly decent fixtures after that for him. So yeah, that actually works pretty well if you want to go for Fabianski and Sells. Fabianski and Flecken also works quite well on a wild card, just playing Fabianski for one game week only, but there is still a good chance that Areola does start indeed in game week 4. So don't hold your breath on that one, but it's an interesting idea and a nice little way to get an advantage, get your goalkeeper that you want without having to play them in a really tough fixture in game week 4. Now, this team from Webby is probably the most balanced team of the video. I really like it. 96% rated, and it is in general really, really strong. We've got the double Liverpool defense in there. I like Verbruggen as a goalkeeper pick. We've got Rico Lewis for that little bit of Man City defensive cover. We not only have Salah and Haaland in this team, but we also have that Arsenal cover with Havertz, and we can look to maybe add Saka in later down the line, maybe a defender, you know, Gabriel in for Robertson, again, looks nice for game week 6. So you have those options to get even more for Arsenal's really nice run of fixtures. But one question I have is, how often are you going to play Minter and Davies? Because Semenyo is predicted higher points for pretty much every game week, higher than Minter. Even against Chelsea at home, I think that actually could be a better opportunity for Semenyo than Minter. And when you go through the game weeks, we go through the weeks other than, yeah, even game week 5. They're predicted the same amount of points there. 4.4 for Semenyo, 4.4 for Minter. Game week 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In every instance, it is optimized to play Semenyo ahead of Minter, which kind of begs the question, do you need Minter? Can we just downgrade him to someone else? When are you going to play him? And even if you do play him, are you going to leave Semenyo points on the bench when you do that? The other question is, when are you going to play Davis? Like, is there really big opportunities to play Davis any game weeks? I mean, not really. I mean, I look at some of these fixtures, they are okay, but are you going to play Davis ahead of Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, Lewis, an Arsenal defender when you bring them in? Probably not. Probably pretty much never. Robinson as well. Do we need this much bench coverage? Can we just downgrade Davis down to Greaves, for example? And will that make the team just as good as it was before, but you've just saved yourself 0.5 million? Easy. Also, the goalkeeper rotation. Verbruggen will play in 4, Verbruggen will play in 5. In game week 6, you would maybe at that point start Flecken for a couple of game weeks, but do we need both? The difference is kind of negligible between the two and their predicted points. There's not really too much in it. So maybe it might be just worth going for one, sticking with one, downgrading the other to a Valdemarson, and we just saved ourselves another 0.5 million. So we've saved 1 million by downgrading just 2 bench players. I even mentioned Minter could maybe be downgraded, but we'll leave him in the team for now. You could maybe play him ahead of Rodgers, maybe some games as well. Not really too sure, to be honest. But saving that 1 million, you can take Minter up to like a 6.5 million midfielder potentially, and that would make kind of Rodgers a more frequent bench player, I guess. We're looking through some of these players. Gibbs White looks decent for 6.5. You can maybe go for some of these other options. Of course, you've got like Madueke if you wanted to get a Chelsea asset in, for example. There's a few options there. You could also upgrade another position. Like that extra million can take you a variety of places, even if it isn't in game week 4 specifically. Just leave that money in your bank, and you know that 1 million. It's gonna be very useful later down the line. It could really be very, very useful indeed. In fact, you downgrade Minter to a 4.5. You know, you could do even more. You could take Lewis straight to an Arsenal defender right now, for example, or take Lewis to Gvardiol for more long-term stability. There are some different options there, but the team was balanced to begin with. I've taken a little bit of money off the bench, and it's still a brilliant, brilliant team, and saved 1 million. So maybe a little wasteful, but in general, this team is great. And the changes that I've made to it are kind of just my preferences of not wanting to have players in my squad that I'm literally never going to play, because that seems a little bit pointless to me to have those players in your team. But there you go. Still, great team, great team. Now, this team from TJ Wolf, I'm not so keen on, if I'm honest. It's 91% rated, which isn't like terrible, and the team value is clearly there. This person clearly has a budget of 100.7 million or more, which is very, very nice indeed. My issue is I feel like this person is either a Manchester United fan or very much not a Manchester United fan, because a lot of the United fans I've spoken to have said, yes, they support their team, but in FPL, there is no way they would pick double Man United players for their team. And the two players are Mazraoui and Ahmad. In the short term, Mazraoui is pretty good, but there's going to be a time where Luke Shaw comes back into the team within the next couple of game weeks, and that is going to put Mazraoui's minutes into question, because it could be Dalot and Shaw playing each side, for example. And also Ahmad, Garnacho is already getting game time. Ahmad, obviously, in the last game, like not getting as many minutes. We're going to see Ahmad's minutes reduce and reduce and reduce. He might not even start another game for several game weeks. We don't know for sure. So even though he is 5 million, that seems cheap. It seems like a good bargain. I think you just play it safe and go for Rodgers. And I think just swapping Ahmad for Rodgers straight away is a very sensible decision indeed. Mazraoui is another player I would just not look to pick right now. Man United are just not that good defensively, and I think we can find, slightly better value for money elsewhere. In general, the rest of the team, there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. It is a little weak on the bench, a tiny bit weak on the bench, but like nothing crazy, nothing like terrible. So let's try and drop in a slightly different defender on here, and it may be that, because Rodgers is 5.1. It might scupper you a little bit, so maybe we need actually a 4.4 million defender. There is some options here. Like Mykolenko, for example, I think is a better option than Mazraoui in the long term. We've got a couple of options here. So let's go with Mykolenko for the sake of this video. Aina is also there as well, but we're gonna go for Mykolenko. To be honest, I would rather have Greaves at Ipswich than Mazraoui as well, and just save the money. But let's pick Mykolenko in now, and we can play Robinson in the short term, and when Branthwaite comes back for Everton, Mykolenko should be a lot better, and Everton's defence will shore up before long. So I think I'd rather go that route if you only have 4.4 to spend. Of course, if you have 4.5 to spend on that defender, then we can maybe do a little bit better even then still. But the rest of this team, it's decent. It's very, very solid. We've got the triple Liverpool in there. We've got an Arsenal attacker. We've got some Man City cover. We've got an Arsenal defender in Raya already. This team's up to 94% now. This is looking far better just through 2 transfers, and unfortunately it is a case of just removing those Manchester United guys who I don't think are trustworthy, and I hope that the more level-headed Manchester United fans in the comments will back me up on this one. Now, this team from Sports Tips of the Week is kind of harshly rated at 89%, and the reason for that is going to be Konate and Garnacho, because the the minutes prediction on Garnacho and Konate are still not super high, because obviously they started the season as substitutes, and therefore the algorithm and the analysis has dictated these players are rotation risk. Of course, as human beings, we do understand that Konate looks to have that centre-back position locked down, and Garnacho, he is going to be a starter at the expense, most likely, of Amad Diallo. So, even though this team is rated 89%, I think that's harsh, and I think there is a lot to love about this team. We've got the double Arsenal ready for game weeks 6 and 7 straight up. We've got Wissa in here, which is really interesting, actually. Do like the look of this Wissa pick, an alternative to going for like an Mbeumo. A lot of people like Mbeumo for the good fixtures after game week 4, but Wissa is a cheaper way of getting that Brentford attacker in. We've also got Buonanotte instead of Rodgers, slightly cheaper, but he has been actually starting for Leicester so far this season, which is nice to see. Maybe he could be a Rodgers alternative if you wanted to go that way. But in general, this team is very strong. Got that double Liverpool defense there as well. I don't love Konate ahead of some of the other options. I would prefer to have like a Robertson in here, but you know, we got to make some sacrifices somewhere. Could it be that we downgrade Garnacho in order to upgrade Konsa? I would say that's probably the only thing I could think of. So if you just downgraded Garnacho to Minter and you could bring in, instead of having, we could have Robertson in there instead of a Konate, that would work pretty well. And that's probably what I would suggest as minor changes to this team to get the AI rating up, but like there's nothing wrong with it. He's just making predictions on future minutes rather than just depending on what we know about the past minutes. It's a strong team. It's a decent team. I like it. And this final team is coming in from FPL Rev. It's another team trying out this Fabianski play for game week 4 only, allowing you to have Flecken as your backup goalkeeper, but also have actually tripled up here on Brentford with Mbeumo and Wissa on the bench, who are going to come in for future game weeks. So you can see, for example, the game week 5 team would look something like this. Maybe Wissa would still be on the bench for this game week, but Mbeumo would come in against Spurs, and going into game week 5, we're again in this more attacking formation, and Mittelmer maybe going to the bench with him playing Chelsea away from home there. Wissa and Mbeumo playing against West Ham, which is quite nice there actually. So this could work. It's an interesting play. We've got that dream double up of Liverpool, triple up of Liverpool. Trent, Robertson, Salah, I think it's just the best possible triple up on Liverpool you can have, but we are missing Arsenal. So you got to have a plan to get some Arsenal players into this team somehow, or maybe just start with one of them. But look, it's strong. We've got a strong defense there. We've got a decent rotation of defenders. We have got those Brentford players ready to go. Maybe not going to play in game week 4, but we've got them ready to go for game week 5 and beyond. It works. It's a decent plan, and I like it. It's a 95% rated. Very, very decent indeed. And don't forget, guys, if you want to get your team rated as well, just use the link at the top of the description. But if you have any other questions related to teams, let me know in the comments. Make sure you like before you go, subscribe if you're new around here, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.